What is up, grinders? Welcome to a special UFC 295 crunch time before lock here. I'm your host, Mike Brown, aka H3 Buddha, here with my pal, who's I think this is a great card. If you're max entering, I hope you are. This is a scroll type of card, man. You can go crazy. This is a blender type of card. I wish we had our buddy Blender on here too, but John, this is a hell of a card. You can go many different directions, but I don't know if I've ever seen a slate that is dictated by the top two fights ever. Like, your decision making is firmly on what you're gonna do in those top two fights.
Yeah, I think so. And so I put this in my article, but like going back the last, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 pay-per-views going through July, like each of them has had like a handful of really strong favorites, like guys that are, or ladies, that are minus 300 or stronger. This one, we only have one fighter like that. And so it makes it interesting. Like, there's a lot of live underdogs. Like, and it's not just like, oh, I've got a good feeling about this guy. I mean, it's like by the odds, there was probably going to be more upsets on this card than any other pay-per-view going back through July. So yeah, it makes it an interesting card. And, having that one fighter, Rebecca, that's, such a strong favorite, another late replacement type fights, and then having 2 5-round fights that are really in the middle of the pricing structure, especially on DraftKings, then it makes it a very common construction to just go with that. Go with Rebecca, go with either fighter from each of the two 5-round fights. And then Benoit Saint Denis, I think, is going to be very popular as well. So that construction is like very easy to get to. And it makes it in a contest where you're trying to avoid duplication, like maybe you want to avoid that structure for your lineups.
Absolutely. There are some very duplicated lineups I can imagine on this slate. And I got to be honest, I got to start off with the two things. These underdogs in those top two fights are getting a hell of a lot of ownership, and I'm frustrated. Are you as frustrated as I am? Because I was kind of somewhat hoping that Aspinall would be talked up. Aspinall's the guy, right? All right. Michael Bisping signing off on him. They're doing more marketing for Tom Aspinall than they are Pavlovich. Let's be honest. They're trying to push him up there and get him up to the championship. But just 2 fights ago, he had that awful injury. So, 35, just slightly less than Pavlovich. I mean, they're going to come in close. We know that. But it's still a situation where you have two guys that are absolute first-round monsters. Do we see it regressing at all, too, to the mean where they just kind of like, these are high-level fights, and all the chips are in. Like, I could see either of the 2 5-round fights, John. They kind of look at each other, feel each other out, couple jabs, distance striking, even in the main or the heavyweight fight, which is predicted to probably finish pretty early.
Yeah, so I think that's got just about even odds to end in the first round, and it's an evenly lined fight. So both guys have about 30% chance of winning in the first round. That's probably my favorite of the 2 5-round fights, just because, yeah, I think the Pereira Yuri fight is more likely to be slower paced. Where they're both going to be kind of preparing to fight 5 rounds. And so that one I think has a better chance to bust, but it's pretty close. I like the heavyweight fight a little bit better because I think that could be high scoring, even if it doesn't end in the first round. Like if they start going for like takedowns and stuff.
Both
which,
of them.
I don't.
I think they're both live for takedowns. Do you agree with that? I mean, I think people are talking Aspinall, more tools. I feel like we've seen that, right? He has gone for takedowns, but I said this behind our paywall with Liam. Sergey Pavlovich is playing blind man's poker. It's quite literally, he's held the cards up. If you play blind man's poker, you put your cards up, everybody around the table, and then you don't know what you have. He could have great takedown defense, and he should have it, and he could have sneaky takedowns himself too. That's the weird thing about Pavlovich.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Like he's got like six first round finishes in a row. I mean,
he doesn't need to go there. Neither of them
exactly. I just feel like Aspinall is he's a little bit more untested. So yeah, I kind of like lean towards the Pavlovich side, and there's an argument that it's a $200 difference. It seems slight, but it might not be. So that like Pavlovich is less likely to be priced off the winning lineup than Aspinall. But honestly, I think the winner of either of this, either winner Either of these guys, if they win, is likely to land on the winning lineup.
So
Was
permutations wise, does it lead you to in the public building a Pavlovich Yuri type of build, or is it going to be somewhat different with like maybe an Aspinall Yuri? Like where's when you were building lineups, what was the most possible likely jammable situation?
I think I think the Yuri Pavlovich build is going to be probably the higher owned, which is unfortunate.
I hate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get different elsewhere though. Like I'm kind of spreading it out amongst those 4 fighters, right? The 4 or 5 round fighters. I'm kind of spreading out the ownership, and I'm ending up like just underweight Benoit Saint Denis, which isn't a great feeling either.
It's terrifying.
I think you can set a rule. I don't always like set rules like this, but maybe you just want to, out of those fighters, like out of the 4 or 5 round fighters, Rebecca and Benoit Saint Denis, maybe you just go with 2, because I think it's going to be so common to have like 4 of those fighters and then just 2 of the underdogs in like the 7,200 to like 7,700 range.
Yeah, and Rebecca, let's talk about that one to get that one, completely checked off here. He's in a absolute smash spot. Let's be honest. Roosevelt Roberts, cut from the UFC, worked his way on the Ultimate Fighter, lost on the Ultimate Fighter, late notice replacement, lengthy guy. I really don't know where he wins this fight. I feel like Rebecca quite literally has the quick win bonus. He's got the blanket for 3 rounds that scores tremendously well. Or, I mean, a deep first round will probably be the same thing as a quick win bonus, honestly.
Yeah, so Rebecca is a fighter. I'm about even with the field right now, but I'd actually prefer to be a little bit under the field because, it's the same thing, right? If you think about it, at the beginning of the night, he's the most appealing fighter because he's the most likely to win and he's got good first round finish odds. At the end of the night, though, you're probably going to have 12 or 13 winners. Hopefully 13 winners. The way we've been going lately, probably going to be 11 or 12. But, then when you take those like 12 winners and you're trying to put them on the winning, highest scoring lineup under the salary cap, suddenly he's the least appealing because he's the most expensive fighter. He's the most likely fighter to get priced off the winning lineup. Like he has to put up one of the highest scores, like one of the 6 highest scores to be on that winning lineup. He's got a decent chance of doing it, and obviously he's got a very good chance of doing it, right? He's the biggest favorite, and he's got pretty, 30% or more implied odds of getting a first round win. But there's a good number of fighters on this card that have like good 20% or more chances of winning in the first round. And so if you start to see a few of those actually winning in the first round, Rebecca can easily get priced off.
100% understand it. It's scary. He's definitely the safest option by a mile on the card. So, in a cash game setting, you're probably clicking it, not even thinking about it. But I mean, there's 2 guys below him that I think make for a very interesting GPP type of plays here. We have Joshua Van and Jamal Emmers. I like the lower weight classes. I think that's been out for a while. You like the flyweights because there's constant action, there's constant striking, there's scrambling. There's just so many categories that can get hit. But Joshua Van was a guy who just went in and outstruck Zalgis Zalmagulov last time out and put up 140 significant strikes. I think Borojas is going to be right in his face for the taking. Whether Borojas is out there throwing and winning the fight, that would be another. There's a lot of live dogs, let's be honest, on this slate. That's something we should have led with as well. But I put these 2 guys, Van and Emmers, as somewhat of a zig from the zag, because you said Saint Denis and Rebecca are your 2 plays here. And Jamal Emmers, let me be honest, I am committed to the early card, okay? People aren't going to be wanting to commit to these first, 4 fights, the early prelims. And Van and Emmers could set the tone for the night. Emmers against Bazooka, I think I look at guys that give up a ton of fantasy points. And if you look at what, what's his name, Son Woodson did to Bazooka last time out, 1,000,000 points. I mean, this guy got taken down at will. He's not very good. But let's be honest, Emmers has been somewhat fighting to the competition in front of him, not a fantasy relevant guy. Could this be a breakout spot? I don't know. I mean, first fight of the night in New York City. Go make a statement, kid. This is a low-owned potential upside guy.
Yeah, I like Van. I like Bazooka. I like
Yeah.
Boras. Like, not as big a fan of Emmers just because he's so expensive. Like, 9,400 is a lot. Again, like, he's got to put up a good amount of points, and like we haven't seen him do that. So like of the first couple of fights, Emmers has been like the odd man out for me, but I like the idea of being over the field on Bazooka. I like the idea of being over the field on Porras, and like I'm definitely not trying to fade Van either. Like Van's one of those guys that's maybe getting lost in the shuffle where he's got pretty decent odds for a first round win. I think I agree. I think he can put up points even if he's not getting like that early win or whatever. It's just Emmers, like, the extra 200
more inactivity in an Emmers fight. Probably there's more opportunities for stalling out, slow striking than the Van fight, which should have a better pace to it for sure. But it's just more so an ownership play at 9,400, and he's buried down the card for a reason. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
First
exactly.
fight of the night.
Yeah, just not a guy that we've seen like really put up like that massive score.
But I do like his opponent giving up a ton of points.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember that Woodson fight? It's just one of those situations where Woodson to me is a striker, and he was taking him down 4 times and getting over 150 strikes. Now, not significant strikes, but strikes on the mat, the little pitter patter, which adds up. So that's why I'm digging and clawing. But so you said you're going underweight to Saint Denis. That's terrifying.
Right.
And it is absolutely terrifying, but it leads me to believe you're playing his opponent because there might not be a better leverage outside. Let's not count the 2 5-round fights. A leverage play on this slate, the end Matt Frevola, steamroller. I mean, let's be honest. If he wins and finishes, he's instantly optimal in any form of a win, and he's killing off a ton of ownership. I mean, steamroller.
I got him. I got him. I'm building a lineup, guys, and I got him.
He's your play.
Yeah, so I think he's been underrated, like Matt Frevola, that is. He just a year ago, he just did the same thing, right? Like he was about a plus 180 underdog, went into Madison Square Garden and got the win. And I believe got the first round knockout. Like I mean, it's terrifying to go up against Benoit Saint Denis. But like, remember, like, one of these fights for Saint Denis was in Paris, and he's a former French like paratrooper or whatever. So he had the crowd behind him in that one. This one, the crowd might not be behind him, right? He's got to come across the pond, go to Madison Square Garden, or like Matt Frevola was coming from like Long Island or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's terrifying.
If he stops the takedown, you're going to be happy. If that first takedown he shoots and he just gets the underhooks, turns him around and starts like hitting him with elbows, like you're going to be very, very, very happy.
Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of overweight on Frevola. I put him as one of my favorite underdogs on the card. 7,100. I think you said it. Like Saint Denis probably needs a high scoring win to land on the winning lineup. Like any of these 9,000 guys, like they've got to have the high point total to land on that winning lineup. Like Matt Frevola, if this does stall out, like there's the chance that this is one of those like very violent but not particularly high scoring fights. And if Frevola wins that, then he can still end up on the winning lineup, whereas I think Benoit Saint Denis can't.
Yeah, and it's going to be scary because you're dealing with fire against Saint Denis. Let's be honest, the guy just continues to push forward. I felt like people were over confident in him in certain fights. Like this last fight for him, I felt like he got caught a couple times coming in for those takedowns. So he eventually might get caught. Don't know if this is the spot, but I understand from a percentage and leverage standpoint, Frevola is the play on the slate. But I got to be honest, I love buy low spots, John. I talk about it all the time. Jessica Andrade. I'm not even gonna listen. I wish she was a plus 250 or plus 400. Why is there not more hot girl ownership built in to Mackenzie Dern? Why is there not more hot girl built-in money line equity for her? I don't understand this. And I honestly think that this fight overall is under-owned for the potential because look at Jessica Andrade's fights. Look at them. They're always, if she's winning, she's putting up 130 points in domination. And then you look at Mackenzie Dern, she's got to be perfect. I feel like if you're clicking her button, you really have that first round equity. Like, I don't think she's going to go out there and grind and offensively wrestle to a dominant 30-26. Is it in the realm of possibilities? Yes. We have seen the trajectory of Jessica Andrade fall off the cliff, right? But I mean, she's one of the best fantasy scorers point per dollar that we've ever seen.
Yeah, I tagged Mackenzie Dern. I actually think that Dern's going to be under-owned because, like, if you look at Dern versus Benoit Saint Denis, just in terms of the odds to win and the odds to get a win in the first round, like, it's pretty close. And I think Benoit Saint Denis is going to naturally have more ownership because, like, if you put Dern and Saint Denis in the octagon together, like, Benoit Saint Denis would kill her, right? but thankfully, Mackenzie Dern's not facing Benoit Saint Denis; she's facing Jessica Andrade, who is, I think, in her fourth fight this year. Got the win in January, 2 losses since then. And you get the feeling that maybe she's going out there more for financial mean. Like, that's something you see in UFC. You don't necessarily see in other sports where, like, this might not be a fight that she like it's not the best timing to go in for the fourth time in one calendar year.
Look at the position. Look on the card. They're trying to create a star. Let's be honest, right? They know that Mackenzie Dern is there to be had. She's marketable.
Yeah.
She's got the jiu-jitsu lineage behind her to rip a limb off at any time. We see what they're trying to do. But do you agree with my statement? This fight overall is under-owned compared to the whole card. And I think it's one of the better ones because I almost wish I could buy low. I just wish it was a bigger price tag on Andrade if I'm going to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I think right now I have like single-digit ownership on Andrade, and I'm probably going to rerun things. But there's an argument, you should have higher ownership. I just don't like the idea of her going in there for the fourth time in a calendar year. Like, that's probably not like a strategic career move as much as it is like a money grab. And I agree. Like, Mackenzie Dern is the one that we're seeing on the other car, right? Like, when they go to the crowd shots and she's wearing like the nice dress, and like it's Mackenzie Dern, not Jessica Andrade, in the crowd there. So I agree. Yeah, I think they're trying to make a star here. And I just think Dern's going to win this fight. Maybe for fantasy, like for DFS purposes, there is an argument to have a little bit more Jessica Andrade as an underdog than I do have. So I'll probably rerun things. But yeah, I think Dern wins this fight. I think she's going to be under-owned because I think like she's got like a 28% chance of winning in the first round. Like, that is up there with Rebecca, with Benoit Saint Denis, and with the 2 heavyweight fighters. I think she's going to see lower ownership than all those guys.
Well, how has Andrade been getting finished? She's been getting submitted. It's pretty. I mean, if she gets taken down while they're dry, I think she's probably in trouble. We move from one woman's fight to another that is nobody wants a piece of this fight. Okay, this has written all over it. 1 takedown for one girl, the next round a takedown, or just a kickboxing for 3 rounds that doesn't score well. Lupi Godinez and Tabitha Ricci, man, I think that they are completely super low owned. And low owned for a good reason. I don't know if we have any fight on this slate that is close to, what is it, minus 500 to go to a decision at this stage. It's a ugly spot, but if either two were going to have a dominant win, which side would you say would do it? I'm drawn into the Ricci price tag, but I feel like if there's a 30-27, a Lupi Godinez wrestling based win with Ricci trying to play off her back. Question mark.
I probably like the Godinez, like the Lupi side better. But I agree. Like, this is a fight I'm probably going to be underweight on. Just because, like, stylistically, like, I don't know if it's in, like, neither fighter has the style necessarily where they're going to go out there and rack up a ton of points. And I think they both are probably looking at this fight thinking they can get the win without, like, necessarily scoring a lot of DraftKings points. And so that, like, kind of takes me off the fight. I just think there's other fighters, whether it's the underdog or the favorite that I'd rather get to that are also going to be under-owned. So, I mean, obviously, like, both these fighters are going to be represented in my 150 set or whatever. Just not my favorite place to go. I don't know in terms of, like, the higher dollar stuff if I have either of them in any
small field exit out, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Even the stats are pointing you to that direction. It's probably going to a decision, and even the margin for one of these two women to get like a 30-26 is pretty thin. It's going to be a competitive high level fight, to be honest. There's another fighter right there, flyweights, Steve Urquhart versus Costa, man. I have a feeling, I know who you would like. 11% ownership would make me want to play him. But I think Urquhart is on a overlooked prospect in the division after his big win, his first fight out there. And at 8,600, he's actually a grappler somewhat based. Not the best striking, but I think he's going to have an opponent right in his face in Costa, who is going to be trying to go for heavy shots in front of him, which presents more fantasy scoring opportunities in somewhat of a low ownership fight.
Yeah, actually, I want to be over the field on both these guys. I think it's one of those fights that's going to be lost, right? Because like that construction that I talked about, where you're going like Rebecca, Saint Denis, and then 2 of the 5-round fighters. Like it's really difficult to put like the fighters in the $9,000 to like $8,500 range into those lineups, and like whereas like Lupi and Castaneda, like I don't necessarily want to go there. But like Steve Urquhart, I was want to say Ursig, but it's I think you're right. Yeah, Urquhart. Like he can put up points, and like he's got about a 1 in 6 chance of getting that first round finish. 60% or greater chance of the win. Going to be low owned, so like I'm going there. I'm going to be over the field, and then like Costa, don't like Costa as much, but. I'm going to be on there. He should be owned probably at least his win odds, which are about 30%. So
that's what I'm agreeing with. I think that he's a little bit underowned. I'm not getting there because I think Urquhart is kind of a blue chip type prospect, but Costa is definitely a spot that we might be surprised by the leaderboards tonight if that happens. And there's going to be a very, very high owned underdog in Kung Ho King, man. This is terrifying to me because Castaneda is a guy who said, hey, I'm not going to make weight. Let's make this a catch weight bout. There's a lot of things going against John Castaneda. But Kung Ho King scores you takedowns. Okay, not great volume. Okay volume. Win equity. He's the money line, a value play of the whole entire slate. Let's call it what it is, I would say, outside of those middle range. 7,400. But Castaneda, I mean, this guy is going to be completely the lowest owned, probably priced favorite, right? And I imagine he might have ability to finish off a King who's a little bit long in the tooth.
Yeah, that 20. I think that 25% ownership is too much. I don't necessarily want to go to Castaneda because he the weight issues you talked about. I think this could just be a low scoring fight, and it's just an ownership play. Like I'd rather get to the lower owned, like kind of higher violence underdogs, and I'd rather go down in price from Castaneda to some of the people in the 8,000 to 8,800 range, just in terms of ownership and my my feeling of their chances to win the fight.
Yeah, no, I definitely 100% agree there. This show, though, should get some more likes in the YouTube chat, and tell a friend. We're winding down here another 10 or so minutes, but this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Crunch Time presented by FanDuel. Bet $5 on any money line. Get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Plus, all customers get a profit boost every day. For your new users in here we go. Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or as in Boston, we'd say gambler. But there's a underdog that's an Olympian, okay? And I think he has to come out hot in the first round and negate some of the, USA chance. Listen, Jared Gordon is a somewhat of a fan favorite, and he's in his home neck in New York. I want Mark Madsen to show that offensive wrestling. Don't make it competitive. Just make it a wrestling match. And he's 7,300. I don't have faith in it. Let me be honest. I'm talking it up just to let it right down, John, because his fights are somewhat close. He doesn't wear damage well. He's not really translated his Olympic success at wrestling into MMA. He really hasn't. But Jared Gordon, I've seen some talk about him in the MMA tout sphere, and 30% ownership. I almost would rather go underweight to this or take Madsen if that's going to be the case. He's going to get some ownership. It's terrifying, let's be honest.
Yeah, I like the Jared Gordon side. I thought Liam did a really good job, like breaking this fight down with the different styles of wrestling. That like Madsen, probably has a style of wrestling that's just not like that conducive for UFC success and UFC scoring, or DraftKings scoring rather. So I like the Jared Gordon side. 27% ownership is probably about right. Like I'm probably not going to aim to be dramatically over the field on Gordon. But I don't feel that I need to go to Madsen. He's not that low priced. Like I just like the cheaper guys a little bit better. Whereas like Madsen just doesn't have that great a chance of a win. Even if he does get a win, right? Like he's more likely to be priced off of the winning lineup than like Furbola, Bazooka, Porras, even Jessica Andrade, right? Like I'd rather just drop down to any of those fighters. And probably just not take Madsen. And he's getting older. And so I actually think Gordon's chances of getting the early finish are maybe a little bit like on the low side in terms of odds, just because like it does, like it's so much easier to knock fighters out as they get older, right? So so Gordon, even though he's not like known as a potent finisher, like he's probably underrated in terms of his chances of getting a early finish.
Hey, let's be honest. He beat Patty Pimblett.
Yeah.
Let's call it for what it is. And a guy who is buried down the card, but it's going to have a lot of people screaming for him in the stands early on. I understand it. I just feel like Mark Madsen is kind of on the way out. Let's be honest here. And there's one fight left, and I could see this one absolutely annihilate for scoring. We have Pat Sabatini and Diego Lopez. The UFC loves Diego Lopez. Let's be honest, John. Like they're like, all right, man, you came in here, you put on a show against Movsar Evelev. Go out next time and destroy the guy. Well, he went out last time, didn't have any scoring criteria, and got 90 points. We've rarely seen that happen, but he's absolutely a guy that can score points in bunches when he's getting finishes. I worry about him the longer he gets stretched out. And let's be honest, Pat Sabatini has that grab a hold of you, not going to throw volume. I have one really bad thing in my head that they just end up negating the grappling because, let's be honest, Diego Lopez is more of a BJJ guy. It's going to be Pat Sabatini is probably going to be the aggressive wrestler getting it to there. Lopez might be like, all right, man, come into my guard. But that's control time. That's pitter patter. That's finish equity.
Yeah.
Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, so like Lopez has about a 20% chance of getting the first round win, and he's only owned at like 19%. So he should be owned a little bit higher. And I agree, like Pat Sabatini could put up, like in a win, could put up a big score. It's true they could negate each other, but like any two fighters can negate each other, right? Like, it's just difficult to predict the scoring, and this is likely to be an active fight, right? Like, so yeah, this one probably comes down to a question of, are you getting those reversal points? Are you getting like those points that aren't like control time, aren't the strikes, right? Like so, not a knockdown, not a takedown. Like it's harder as like as an observer to judge that. So you're relying a little bit more on fight metric, but
but
like, it's at least going to
John, never do that. Yeah. Don't let it into the hands of fight metric UFC stats.
But yeah, I mean, this is a fight that I'd much rather go to than the Lupi Godinez and Tabitha Ricci fight. I think the winner is likely to put up a pretty good score. So yeah, like both of these guys, Sabatini, Sabatini might see higher than 24% ownership. Like he fits in pretty well into lineups. But then again, with the 5-round fighters priced right around these guys, they're probably going to see lower ownership than they should.
All right. Now, let me ask you, and we'll bring TJ in here to end the show because he is playing. TJ, you're playing. There's a 200K up the top. You said last week you got some funds to play with. You're going to play. How are you attacking something like this where you have 2 5-round fights. I think the decision making, John, for a guy like DJ who's new to our sport, right? You need to start there. So, like, how are you differentiating? Are you getting some Aspinall? Are you going to get some Pereira? Now, let me tell you about Pereira, though. Pereira is doing nothing until he's doing something. Like, he can knock anybody out at any time. But the scoring, like, overall is not going to be there over 5 rounds. So I think if you're terrified if you fade both 5-round fights, TJ. You're going to be going, please don't score. Please double nut shot.
I got both 5-round fights in. My biggest question right now is I actually have a 2v2 that I'm torn between, and I know nothing about any of these guys, so I'm going to leave it to you guys. And the 2v2 is, do I want Rybicki and Sabatini, or do I want, which I'm guessing is, my understanding is very good but very high owned, is kind of what I've understood. And then my other option is Van and Urquig.
I think it's easy. Yeah, that's your second.
Second one? All right, there it is.
I mean, you're getting lower ownership. Van and Rybicki could compete for the same type of scoring.
Yeah.
In a vacuum.
You're not giving up that much, and you're getting much lower ownership. So yeah, I'd go with the second one.
All right, let's do it. I got my one lineup locked in. I'm ready to rock. And then I did the one guy I wanted to get in, but I feel like if I was playing more than one lineup, I would do it. It was this Bazooka guy, just because of that low ownership, and Squirrel's got him tagged. So if I was playing 3 lineups, I think I'd get him in one, just for the sake of like low ownership and nobody else is doing it. Anything can happen.
Squirrel likes this take.
On one, I don't know if I can do it. Yeah, I don't know who I take out. I like everybody else on this team.
That's the problem. Squirrel, if Bazooka loses, you can just go for the 20K up top on the showdown slate. Let's be honest. There's money to be had on this.
I'll say that, like, 6,800, like, getting a greater than 30% chance of a win is pretty good. Like, a lot of times, like, that 6,800 fighter is a like plus 500, plus 600 underdog. Like getting a 1 in 3 chance of a win is not, for 6,800, is really good relative to like the other past card we've had. So something to consider.
Yeah.
If I didn't if I did it, it would be just to leave like a ton of salary on the table. It wouldn't be to get up anywhere else. So that's why I don't think I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, next
this team looks nice. I got some Frivola. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, Frivola over Bazooka. Bazooka probably be a decision, I'd imagine. Maybe stretch it out. At least you get some leverage. But next week we end up having 14 fights, TJ, and it's not the early morning. It's a 2 p.m. card. Paul Craig versus Brendan Allen should be a decent spot there. But I think we're done here. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. Smash that like button on the way out, everybody.
Make sure you check out NBA coming up shortly.
Yeah, I'll be on with Tim and Taylor. And so it's a fun little combo because Tim's always locked in on the weekends. He's also been doing a great job with NHL content. I put in some of his bets from Scores and Odds in there today. And then Taylor's right. Yeah, they have in a big way. And then Taylor's doing the NBA core play articles on the weekend, and I do the tournament articles. So we got a nice little squad so that even if you're like Squirrel and haven't even looked at the slate yet, you can still tune in and win some money.
I will look at it. I just haven't looked at it yet. Too much UFC.
For what it's worth, I'll just touch quickly because since our wonderful sponsor FanDuel is the sponsor, we're going with their lock and not DraftKings' lock. And so the show doesn't start till 7 or it's like 6:30 Eastern as opposed to 5:30 Eastern. So we won't have a show for the DraftKings lock. And so what I'll say is Taylor and I both addressed this in our articles. Biggest thing is Damian Lillard just got ruled out. So it opens up the Cameron Paynes, etc. for value. And Giannis becomes a little bit less of just like a solid tournament play to you almost have to play Giannis now.
I wish I had more to offer. I mean, I think Giannis in a UFC match would be pretty good. I'd take him all day.
That would be very interesting. You know, that's something as a UFC guy. Here's a question for you, because
you're gonna hit me with
I've always
one.
Look, I'm Canadian, right? And so as a Canadian, people are and a basketball player. So my whole life, I've just been getting hit with hockey players are so much tougher. Look at their sport compared to basketball. They bleed, they wipe it off, they go back onto the ice. I get that. But if you're taking a group of the best fighters from the NBA and putting them up in a match against the best fighters in the NHL in an octagon, which side are you taking?
I mean, I think condition-wise, they're about the same, correct? Somewhat same, because you're running back and forth on the court. I mean,
yeah, in terms of like cardio, yeah, I'd say about the same.
So
There's a
let's
massive
rule
size
that out. The size is what matters, and they're going to be able to implement that size. I think NBA. I don't think that's a contrarian take. Would you? Why are people saying NHL players?
That's contrarian where I live. Which is right, just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Squirrel, did you see the LeBron James versus we'll say like Derrick Henry? Somebody on Twitter threw that out there, and I'm shaking my head. I'm like, I'd have to think Derrick Henry. Go for the takedowns, lower center of gravity, take LeBron down. We could go on and on. I mean, this we're already 5 minutes past lock, but
right, yeah. 6'8" is a tall man. Like these basketball players all look about the same size, and so you think they're all about like 6 foot something, like 6'2", 6'3". Like 6'10", 280 is gigantic. And especially when they're well conditioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I kind of lean towards the NBA guys.
I'd agree 100%. TJ, thank you for the show. Squirrel, thank you for everything. We hope to see everybody on the top of the leaderboard. See you guys.